The Zacks Rank, value, momentum, growth, and income all factor into Zacks Rank buys.
Well, if it's value stocks you are looking for, you may want to check out the refiners. At least that's what our value strategist, Tracey Ryniec, seems to think. And she's going to talk more about it now. So you're actually referring to this period as the golden age of refiners.
Yeah, believe it or not. You wouldn't think that given what's going on in the energy sector, because everybody thinks energy is the bad place to be with crude so low. But for the refiners, these are good, amazing conditions because the crack spreads are really wide, and that's the difference between WTI and Brent and how they make the gasoline and all of that. And they're just cash flow machines right now.
So golden age, as far as you're concerned, in this context, doesn't refer to a bygone era.
No. And this may still be going into 2016, but that's the part that I think investors are a little bit nervous about.
All right, so one of the companies that you are identifying here for value is Tesoro Petroleum.
Yeah, they are mainly Western refining. They have 6 refineries and about 2,300 service stations, so they do make money off the gasoline part of it, and then also making the refined products. They just had a great quarter, like all of these guys have had. They, saw earnings up about 112% year over year. That is just tremendous, as I've been saying. The crack spreads were wider in the West Coast than in some other parts of the country, so they did even better than some other people did. Another earnings beat. All the fundamentals are really sound. You can see I put up the earnings though, and this is where people start to get a little bit nervous. They're going to have record earnings this year, and then next year they're dropping off considerably. But this may not be that bad given the market conditions and what the shares are trading at. They're trading about 13.8 times. Now, that sounds really cheap because the overall market is much more expensive at 17 or 18 times right now. Right. But the refiners historically have traded only about 9 to 10 times. So you're getting a little bit more into the premium area for Tesoro here. I don't mind. Normally I mind when I see a chart like this where the earnings actually are really declining the next year. That means something's going on if they're dropping off like that.
You're changing. What's going on with you?
But in this case with the refiners, it's not a totally bad story because they are coming off these record earnings. I mean, the cash flow has just been tremendous. Tesoro has raised their dividend twice this year already. They have a huge share buyback going on. They just reauthorized another $1 billion because they got to put the cash somewhere. They're paying down debt as well. Yeah. So everything looks good.
And yet they still pay a 1.9% dividend.
Yeah, you get the 1.9 on top of it. So, the money's got to go somewhere. So I don't mind seeing this because the crack spreads are narrowing a bit. So they will make less next year. Okay. But looking at the chart, you can see in August, September, when people got nervous about all the energy stocks, they sold off the refiners, even though nothing had changed in the story. That was maybe a buying opportunity then because we've seen them come back, and Tesoro here is trading at new all-time highs. I still like it as a value stock, but it is getting a little bit pricier compared to even its peers. But again, everything is in place, and 2016 is still looking very solid, especially like on the West Coast with these guys.
Okay. We know that your trained eye looks for all these little nuances.
Yeah.
And so if you say it's okay, then I'll go with it.
Yeah, I still like this space. I like all of the refiners for the most part, but this one is more expensive than some of its peers.
Well, you seem to like Valero Energy as well, the largest refiner in the United States.
Yeah, now this is an alternative if you want something a little bit cheaper. They are bigger. They have 16 refineries all across the U.S., so that gives them a little more diversity. They're not totally dependent on something good going on in the West Coast, which happened to them as well this last quarter. They also have Gulf Coast refineries, which the analysts think will be the place to be in 2016, that the crack spreads are going to be very favorable in that region of the country. They also have international operations. They do have one refinery overseas. They own a lot of service stations, about 5,000 in like the Caribbean and also in Europe. So, that's also countering a bit. There's strong gasoline demand. People forget this part of the story. So their service station business is doing well. They also, tremendous cash flow. I think it's almost $3 billion year to date. They've given back to shareholders in the form of increased dividends or buybacks.
3% dividend, is that right?
Yeah, that's the 3% dividend yield. They just raised it again this last quarter. They have a strategy of paying out 75% of their cash flow to the shareholders.
Okay.
The analysts have said through last quarter, through the third quarter, they've paid 73% out. So they're almost at the maximum payout. But that's, again, just tremendous because they're just generating all this money. They, too, are paying down debt. So these businesses are getting better. They also will have opportunity because they do have cash on hand, unlike their big oil brethren.
Right.
They will be able to look around, and maybe even expand organically. That might mean building a new facility, which is tremendously expensive, but will have a payoff in the future. They also, as you can see with these earnings estimates, similar story to Tesoro. It's the same kind of business. So looks great this year. It is dropping for next year, but the estimates are going in the right direction. Again, the analysts all think 2016 crack spreads, while narrowing, will still be strong. They will still, be making quite a bit of cash flow, they expect, in 2016.
Okay.
Now you can look at this chart. It looks very similar to the same August-September sell-off. That was maybe a buying opportunity. They aren't quite back at record highs, but I'm expecting them probably to follow the same route here. They are cheaper. They're trading about 8.6 times, so you can see the difference between them and Tesoro's. They're bigger, more diverse, so I like it a little bit better for that reason, because you're getting a little bit broader coverage.
Okay. Do you own either one?
I do not, but the value investor does own Valero in its portfolio.
Okay, good deal. And in the meantime, in between these video segments that Tracey shoots with us on value stock selection or value stocks that you may want to consider, you may want to go to Zacks.com because she also writes text pieces on a lot of different areas of investing, stock commentary, stock picks, stock picking strategies. Check it all out on Zacks.com's homepage where you can link to all of that information from. If you're watching our videos on YouTube, don't forget you can also subscribe to them there and comment on them. Feedback's always welcome. With Tracey, I'm Terry Ruffalo.